The November wind carried the scent of wet leaves and chimney smoke through the small town of Cedar Falls, curling around lampposts and settling into the bones of anyone who lingered too long in its path. Marcus Cole sat on the weathered bench outside the hardware store, the same bench he'd occupied every morning for the past 18 months, watching the town wake up around him. His coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago, but he held the cup anyway. It gave his hands something to do. At 54, Marcus wore his years like a heavy coat, visible in the gray threading through his close-cropped hair, in the deep lines bracketing his mouth, in the way he held his left shoulder slightly higher than his right, compensating for an injury that had never quite healed. 22 years in the Army had given him purpose, structure, a family of brothers and sisters in uniform. Coming home had taken all of that away. The hardware store behind him belonged to Frank Winters, who'd offered Marcus a job stocking shelves 3 different times. Marcus had declined each time, though he couldn't have explained exactly why. Something about accepting help felt like admitting defeat. Something about needing anything from anyone felt like weakness. So, instead, he sat. He watched. He existed in the spaces between other people's lives, close enough to see warmth through windows but never stepping inside. The morning foot traffic picked up around 8:30, mothers walking children to the elementary school 2 blocks over, business owners unlocking their doors, the mail carrier making her rounds. Marcus knew their routines better than they did. He knew that Mrs. Patterson always stopped at the bakery for a blueberry muffin on Tuesdays. He knew that the young couple who ran the bookshop held hands every single morning as they walked to work, even after 3 years of marriage. He knew these things because watching was all he had left. His apartment above the laundromat was clean and sparse. A bed, a chair, a small television he rarely turned on. The walls held no photographs. The refrigerator contained enough to survive on, nothing more. He received his veteran's disability check on the 1st of each month, paid his bills on the 2nd, and spent the remaining days trying to figure out what a man was supposed to do with hours that stretched like taffy, endless and formless. Some mornings, the loneliness felt like drowning in slow motion. He'd had a wife once, Sandra. They'd met when he was 23 and she was 21. Married 6 months later in a courthouse ceremony with her mother, crying happy tears in the front row. They'd tried for children for 8 years before accepting it wasn't meant to be. The deployments had been hard on her. The waiting, the worrying, the long silences when he was somewhere he couldn't talk about, doing things he couldn't describe. She'd stayed through 4 deployments. The 5th one broke something between them that couldn't be repaired. When he came home that final time, she'd already packed her things. That was 12 years ago. He hadn't seen her since. Marcus lifted his cold coffee to his lips and pretended to drink. Across the street, the door to the elementary school opened and children began spilling out onto the playground for morning recess. Their laughter carried on the wind, bright, uncomplicated sounds that made something ache behind his ribs. He'd always been good with kids. In the service, he'd been the one who carried candy in his pockets during humanitarian missions, the one who learned to say hello and don't be afraid in a dozen different languages. Now he couldn't remember the last time he'd spoken to anyone under the age of 40. A small figure separated from the group on the playground, a girl, maybe 7 or 8, with dark curly hair escaping from 2 lopsided pigtails. She wore a purple coat that was slightly too big for her, and carried something in her hands that Marcus couldn't make out from this distance. She crossed the street alone, which struck him as odd. Where was her teacher? Her mother? Someone should be watching her. The girl walked directly toward him. Marcus straightened on the bench, suddenly aware of how he must look, unshaven, wearing the same flannel jacket he'd worn for the past week, an old army duffel bag at his feet containing everything he deemed worth carrying. The girl stopped 3 feet away from him and studied his face with the unfiltered curiosity that only children possess. "Are you the soldier?" she asked. Marcus blinked. "What?" "Mr. Frank said there's a soldier who sits outside his store. He said you were in the Army a really long time." She tilted her head. "Were you?" "I was," Marcus said slowly. "A long time ago." The girl nodded as if this confirmed something important. She extended her hands and Marcus saw what she was carrying, a sandwich wrapped in plastic wrap, slightly squished, the bread a little uneven. "I made this for you," she said. "It's peanut butter and honey. That's my favorite. I wasn't sure what your favorite was, so I picked mine." Marcus stared at the sandwich. His throat felt tight. "Why?" he managed. "Because you're always here by yourself," the girl said simply. "And my grandma says nobody should eat breakfast alone." She pushed the sandwich toward him again, waiting. Marcus reached out and took it. The plastic wrap crinkled beneath his fingers. The sandwich was warm from being held against her coat. "Thank you," he said, and his voice came out rougher than he intended. The girl smiled, a gap-toothed, genuine smile that transformed her whole face. "I'm Lily," she said. "What's your name?" "Marcus? That's a good name. It sounds strong." She glanced back toward the school, where a teacher had appeared at the edge of the playground, scanning the area with growing concern. "I have to go back now, but I'll see you tomorrow, okay, Mr. Marcus?" Before he could respond, she was running back across the street, her too big purple coat flapping behind her like wings. Marcus sat very still on the bench, holding a peanut butter and honey sandwich made by a child he'd never met, and felt something shift in his chest, a door creaking open that had been rusted shut for years. The next morning, she came back. This time she brought a juice box along with another sandwich, ham and cheese, she informed him, because she wanted to try something different. She sat beside him on the bench, her legs swinging because they didn't quite reach the ground, and asked him questions. Where had he been in the army? Did he ever see any tanks? What was his favorite color? Did he have a dog? Marcus answered each question carefully, unused to so much attention, unused to anyone caring about the answers. "I was in lots of places," he told her. "Germany, Korea, Afghanistan. Yes, I saw tanks. My favorite color is blue. And no, I don't have a dog." "You should get one," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Dogs are good for lonely people. That's what my mom says." There was that word again. Lonely. She said it without judgment, without pity, just a simple observation, like noting that the sky was gray or that the leaves were falling. "Does your mom know you're bringing me breakfast?" Marcus asked. Lily's expression flickered, something complicated passing through her young face. "My mom works really early," she said. "She leaves before I wake up most days. My grandma watches me, but her legs hurt so she can't walk to school with me. I'm allowed to go by myself, 'cause it's just 2 blocks. Marcus absorbed this information. "And the sandwiches? I make them myself. Grandma shows me how." A note of pride crept into Lily's voice. "I've been making my own lunch since 1st grade. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, at the careful pigtails that were trying so hard to be neat, at the coat that was clearly a hand-me-down, well-worn at the elbows, at the earnestness in her eyes that held an understanding of responsibility far beyond her years. "You take good care of yourself," he said quietly. "Someone has to," Lily replied, not unkindly. Then she brightened. "But I like taking care of other people better. It feels nicer?" She gathered her empty juice box and stuffed it into her coat pocket, preparing to return to school. But she paused, looking at Marcus with that penetrating gaze that seemed to see straight through him. "Mr. Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why don't you want help?" The question landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through everything Marcus thought he understood about himself. "What do you mean?" "Mr. Frank told my grandma he keeps trying to give you a job, but you always say no. And Mrs. Patterson at the bakery said she offered to let you stay in her spare room when it was really cold last winter, but you said no to that too." Lily frowned slightly. "Why, do you say no when people want to help you?" Marcus opened his mouth to give the answer he always gave, that he didn't need charity, that he could take care of himself, that accepting help meant admitting he couldn't make it on his own. But looking at this 7-year-old girl who made sandwiches for a stranger because nobody should eat alone, who walked herself to school and packed her own lunch and still found time to worry about a lonely veteran on a bench, the words died in his throat. "I don't know," he admitted. Lily nodded as if this was the most reasonable answer in the world. "Maybe," she said slowly, "maybe it's not charity. Maybe it's just people being nice because they want to. Maybe it's like the sandwiches." "What do you mean?" "I don't give you sandwiches because you can't get your own food," Lily explained patiently, as if this were obvious. "I give you sandwiches because eating together is better than eating alone. That's not charity, that's just friendship." She waved goodbye and ran back toward the school, leaving Marcus alone on the bench with the remnants of a ham and cheese sandwich, and a realization that was slowly, painfully breaking him open. Friendship. Not charity. Just people being nice because they want to. When had he stopped believing that was possible? The following week, Marcus walked into the hardware store for the first time in 18 months. Frank Winters looked up from the register, surprise evident on his weathered face. "Marcus, everything okay?" "That job," Marcus said, "the one you keep offering, is it still available?" Frank's expression softened into something warm and knowing. "It's always available. When do you want to start?" "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow it is." Frank extended his hand. "Welcome aboard." They shook hands, and Marcus felt something settle into place, Not fixed, not healed, but beginning. A first step. He was outside the store the next morning at 7, waiting for Frank to unlock the door, when Lily appeared with her daily sandwich delivery. Her face lit up when she saw him standing rather than sitting. "Mr. Marcus, you're going to work." "I am," he confirmed, thanks to a friend who reminded me that people being nice isn't the same as charity. Lily grinned her gap-toothed grin. "See, I told you. Can I still bring you breakfast?" "I'd like that very much." 6 months later, Marcus had a key to the hardware store, a raise, and a small office in the back where he handled inventory and ordering. He'd moved into a proper apartment, Mrs. Patterson's spare room, which she'd converted into a rental unit, and acquired a 3-legged rescue dog named Scout, who slept at his feet while he worked. Lily still brought him breakfast every morning, but now they ate together inside the store, sitting on overturned paint buckets in the back room, sharing whatever she'd made that day and talking about everything and nothing. He'd met her mother, Sarah, a tired young woman working double shifts at the hospital as a nursing aide. He'd met her grandmother, Ruth, whose arthritis had gotten bad enough that she needed a walker most days, but whose mind was sharp as a tack and whose cookies were legendary. They'd started having Sunday dinners together, Marcus, Lily, Sarah, and Ruth, crowded around Ruth's small kitchen table, passing dishes and sharing stories. Marcus told them about his time overseas, the good parts, the funny parts, the moments of unexpected beauty in difficult places. Lily told them about school, about her best friend Maya, about her dream of becoming a veterinarian. Sarah told them, hesitantly at first and then, with growing trust, about Lily's father, a good man who died in a car accident when Lily was 3, leaving her to raise their daughter alone, about the struggle to make ends meet, the guilt of never being home enough, the fear of not being enough. Marcus listened to all of it, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he had something to offer besides silence. "I know what it's like," he told Sarah one Sunday while Lily and Ruth were washing dishes in the kitchen. "To feel like you're failing at the most important thing, to be so tired you can't see straight but still have to keep going." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "How do you do it?" Marcus thought about cold benches and cold coffee, and the endless gray mornings when existence felt like punishment. He thought about a small girl with lopsided pigtails and a peanut butter sandwich, asking him why he wouldn't let people be nice. "You let people help," he said, "even when it's hard, even when it feels like admitting weakness, because the truth is, we're not meant to do any of this alone." 1 year to the day after Lily had first approached him with a sandwich, Marcus sat on the bench outside the hardware store, not because he had nowhere else to go, but because he was waiting. The November wind carried the same scent of wet leaves and chimney smoke. The morning light was the same pale gold, but everything else had changed. Lily burst through the school doors at recess, just like she had the first day, but now she ran straight toward him with purpose, clutching something in her hands. "Mr. Marcus! Mr. Marcus, look!" She reached him, breathless and beaming, and thrust a piece of construction paper toward him. It was a drawing, crayon figures standing in front of a house, labeled in careful second-grade handwriting. There was a small figure with dark curly hair. Me, a taller figure in purple. Mom, a figure with a walker. Grandma, a 3-legged dog. Scout, and standing among them, part of the group, included, belonging, a figure with gray hair and a blue shirt. "Grandpa Marcus," the label read. Marcus stared at the drawing, his vision blurred. "I made it for your refrigerator," Lily explained, "because you said you didn't have any pictures, and Grandma said that every refrigerator needs pictures of family. On it," she paused, suddenly uncertain. "Is it okay that I called you Grandpa? Mom said I should ask first, but I wanted it to be a surprise." Marcus pulled her into a hug, this small, extraordinary girl who had seen a lonely man on a bench and decided he was worth a sandwich, worth a conversation, worth keeping. "It's more than okay," he managed. "It's perfect." Lily hugged him back fiercely. "I love you, Grandpa Marcus." 3 simple words, 4 syllables. The most terrifying, wonderful, healing sounds he'd ever heard. "I love you too, sweetheart," Marcus said. And for the first time in 12 years, Marcus Cole cried. Not from grief or loneliness or the weight of all his accumulated losses, but from the sheer overwhelming grace of being found by someone who wasn't looking for anything except connection. He'd spent so long believing that accepting help meant weakness, that needing people meant failure, that the only way to survive was to need nothing and no one. But Lily had taught him the truth that his pride had hidden from him, that the bravest thing a person can do is let themselves be loved. That kindness isn't charity. It's just people being nice because they want to. That family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's a 7-year-old girl with a sandwich and a heart big enough to see the good in everyone. Marcus hung the drawing on his refrigerator that night, right in the center where he'd see it every morning. Scout sat at his feet, tail wagging. Through the window, he could see the lights on in Ruth's apartment 2 floors down, where Sunday dinner was already being prepared. He wasn't alone anymore, and it had all started with a peanut butter and honey sandwich, offered without expectation, without judgment, without anything except the simple belief that nobody should eat breakfast alone. Sometimes the people who save us are the smallest ones. Sometimes the help we need isn't charity at all. It's just love, offered freely by someone brave enough to see past our walls. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we're wise enough to finally accept it.